Okay, so if you'd registered to use our EiB Financial Analytics for Sage 200, our Power BI app, from the website, then great. If you're seeing this video straight from YouTube, just go to www.excelinbusiness.com, find the Power BI Analytics menu, and just register, and you'll be sent a short link to get into this application. So all you need is a web browser to run it. You can run it from any mobile device, any tablet, anywhere you like. And what we're doing is, this is how the app would look if you have Sage 200 and you want to use our software on top. This is the Power BI extension. It comes in two guises. We have a data warehouse cube behind the EiB Analytics for Sage 200 application, and we can either import data into Power BI, or we can run it live through a Power BI gateway. Now, from an application point of view, there's virtually no difference in terms of the screens I'm going to show you, so I'm not going to do a separate demo for the live application, but there are some subtle differences and things that you need to consider, and that's why we had two versions. We didn't want to have two versions, but depending on your circumstances and how you want to deploy Power BI in your organization, then you can. So all you would normally have to do from a monthly point of view is you would change the month. If you were moving from your management accounts from September to October, change this thing to October, hit save, you're done. And there's an entire suite of reports that come out of the box with this application. So if you're familiar with finance, the most obvious place to start is, of course, the TB or trial balance. So we're looking at a trial balance here. We're looking at it for a particular year. I can change that year very, very simply by just clicking on the year, and it'll flip round. So really, really simple. Some of our customers have up to 10 years history here where they can easily flip behind. Also, we will pick up from Sage 200 any cost centers and any departments. Plus, one of the beauties of doing it in EiB Analytics is, if you're multi-company Sage 200 site, we will load each company's data into the application, so you can traverse through multiple companies. Our largest site today has over 30 companies consolidated and visualized using exactly this application. Now, we're using the Sage demo data, so not very exciting here, and I've actually just mirrored the company. This, for all intensive purposes, is the same thing. So if I pick one company here, you'll see that, spookily enough, that's 50% of the total. But you get the idea. You can at least see how that would work with multiple companies. And you can also do this TB at a cost center or departmental level. So just dropping on the cost center here, if I pick London, you'll see London's TB, no balance sheet obviously here, Manchester retail, etc., etc. And you can see how quick and easy it is to move between the data. So if I go back to company level, I've got drill down. You can see there's little plus signs here for P&L and balance sheet. So I click on the P&L here, I can click on the balance sheet on there, drill up, we just flick it again. And if I want to see one of these as a trend, I can obviously just go and pick on, say, Manchester, and that will now show that trend for Manchester in terms of the opening amount, the movement, and the closing balance. A couple of buttons to be aware of, navigation buttons on the right hand side. You'll see that when you display some of these, and you can be selective about the nominals that you actually display here, and you can be selective and home in only on the P&L and balance sheet, that's all fine. But you'll notice when you get these drop downs, because Power BI is allowing you to pick multiple entities here, they don't go away when I select something. So you'll notice that if I just click off that and I pick one cost of sales item here, and it just gives me my cost of sales items in my P&L, it's saying, well, do you want to pick any more? And I can pick more. But of course, you might think, well, that's being a bit annoying now. I can't see the opening values. And this little refresh button here, it just takes off the focus from the drop-down menus there. Now, sometimes you might have gone in here and you've picked a company, you've picked a cost center, you've picked a department, you've homed in on particular nominals, and you've homed in on the P&L balance sheet. You think, whoa, I just want to go back to how I was when I first came into this screen. I don't want to undo all of those and change company, cost center, department. So that's what this middle button's for. You click on that middle button and it will just reset things in terms of the parameters, how it was when you first come in. So remember where you are in the drill down structure, but you can see here now that we're literally back to where we came in. And the right hand side here just allows you to go back to our menu. You can, in this example app, page through each one, going from 2, 3, 4, 5 of 24, and you can click here to go back to the main menu, click right to go back to the first report. But an easier way of doing it, particularly if you're moving from, say, report 1 to report 6, is just click on this, and that will always take you back to the menu from wherever you are in the app, and then you can move this accordingly. Okay, so we looked at the TB, and now going to have a look at the P&L summary. And what we're telling you here is we're actually saying how you can drill down this. Although it's a summary P&L, and we're not allowing you to drill down into more detail than the high level, first level of the P&L here, we are letting you drill down into then a different dimension, in this case companies. So where we had the company that has 32 Sage companies, then when they drill on one of these, it will give you the 32 companies view of sales. Now, of course, here I mentioned we only have 2 companies. So when I drill on sales, for example, here, you're just seeing company 1 and company original. But it says after companies, we go into cost centers. So I drill on company 1, and I now drill down to cost centers. And it says after cost centers, I can go to departments. So if I drill on Manchester Retail, I now get down to the individual departments. Now, how easy was that? And how fast was that? And we're looking at the in-month actuals, we're looking at in-month budget and variance, and we're also looking at the year-to-date equivalents there for any year, for any month over the past N years. So I could actually flip here and say, well, actually, let's have a look at how it was in July. Click on July, or go and refresh the data. How was it in August? That now is annoying me, so remember, we click that button there and it removes it nice and easy. I'm not really sure where I was, so I'll click on the filter. It will return me to the top. So nice and easy navigation. So we can drill down through a lot of data here. So if I go back now and say, okay, we've had a look at a P&L summary that we then drill across to companies, cost centers, and departments. What happens if I do now want to drill down the P&L structure, the chart of accounts, in a lot more detail? And I want the same format here. I do want to have a look at my actuals, budgets, and movements in month and year to date. But now I'm going to drill down the chart of accounts. So you can see here I can drill down very much in similar way I can with EiB Report Studio within our core Excel app for the same data. But now I can obviously expand any of these to the next level of detail. So again, really, really simple here. And again, I can obviously go and say, okay, well, I'm interested in Manchester. And I click on Manchester and it will give me that. Or I want to traverse to London or Manchester Retails. You get the idea. Really, really simple. Remember, don't like this button, click on the reset. Okay, back to the menu. We now might want to have a look at the information over time. So now I'm going to have a look at the trend of the data. So now I'm looking at an entire P&L where I've drilled down, but I can now see that across the entire financial year. Now this will be your financial year. In Sage's demo data, it's all nice and neat, January to December. But you know, if your accounting year was November to October, then of course this will be November to October, or whatever you actually have. And again, you can be selective here. If you've got a long P&L, and a lot of our companies do in this demo, there's not a huge P&L, but some might have 200-300 line P&Ls. Again, you can be selective and say, I only really want to look at sales and trading overheads. Click on that button to get it out of the way. And I'm just narrowing down on the bits that I want. And again, I could pick for any cost center, but I might want to actually do it for a department. So again, just do it for a department, and it flicks between those really easily. Okay, so we've looked at drilling down into the P&L both across dimensionally through companies, cost centers, departments. We've drilled down the entire chart of accounts, looking at actuals, budgets, and forecasts. We're now looking at the information across the year, and I can pick any year. Of course, I could go back and pick a previous year, and that would do that just as easily. And now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, well, I've looked at the kind of bread and butter. This is sort of stuff that nice to be able to have on the web or on a mobile device, because obviously you can access this from absolutely anywhere. But you could, of course, argue, well, I can do this all in your Excel add-in, and on all these four, you certainly can. But now we want to start to look at some of the graphical type analysis that you can do. And this is really where you're looking for heroes and villains. So we have two dashboards. that are pretty much the same thing, only one is focused on income and the other one is focused on expenditure. So here you're looking for heroes, the other one you're looking for villains. Now again, with demo data, it's not so great, but you've got 2 companies worth of data. So I'm showing all the 2 company income items for a particular month, August. Again, I can change that and go to the current month here of September. And I can trace the data, because here I'm looking at it company by summary account. And here I'm looking at cost center within company by summary account, and then I'm looking at cost center with the next level of accounts. Now I can trace this back instantly across any part of the hierarchy. If I click on this Manchester retail outlet here for September for UK sales, click on that, that will automatically trace it back up the ladder and say, okay, in this case, because they're obviously equal companies, this data has come from 2 companies and it's come from that cost center, and that is the actual value. So I can trace any of these right the way back. So if you've got large structures where you're thinking, I can see something is not quite right down in the detail, but where did that actually come from? You can do it really easily. And of course you can do it the other way. You can say, I only want to focus on, oh, this one's good, factory warehouse, that is miles better than all our other outlets. So if I click on that, what do I see? Well, it's all actually generated from one nominal here, but of course in the real world that would probably be generated by n nominals, and you could start to see where you're winning and where you're losing here. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same report, and I know that's the next one on, so I'm not going to go back to the menu. And now of course I'm doing it the other way around. Now I'm looking at costs here, you can see. So if I wanted to pick out where did that cost come from, I click on that and it would again trace back up the level. And I can do it in any way, you know, obviously to reduce this by 50%, because remember these companies are identical. I could just click on company 1 there and it would then actually filter across. Sorry, it's on trading expenses, so it's filtered dynamically on that. But I could obviously now hit control click on all the company ones if I wanted to, and that would then break down company 1. Or I could actually reset it here and actually focus on company 1 through here. Then I don't have to worry about it. And I might have, you know, a lot of detailed accounts in my department, so I might want to focus in a particular cost center before I do the analysis, and then just vary the detail on the right hand side. Now that is something that is nigh on impossible to do with a reporting application. You certainly couldn't do that with our Excel add-in without quite a lot of effort, to be honest. And then moving on, we wanted to look at trends. This trend might look a bit weird first of all, but what it's doing is it's plotting, and again one of our customers here has 10 years worth of data. Using Sage's demo data we only have 2 unfortunately, but we're looking at current period actual movement, and we're looking at that in month. So we can see in month where things were better, 2/16 versus 2/17. But of course you can see that as we go through the months, you start to get some variation. You start off with 2/16 being less than 2/17, but then suddenly in July actually 2/16 was a lot better than 2/17, and you're always left then with this kind of conundrum of, well, so how are we doing on a year-to-date basis? Now of course I could actually see that by clicking on the thing here, but what I want to do here in one chart here, I can actually see where the individual months were better year on year. This is a bit of a weird chart, the ribbon, when you first look at it, but it basically is telling you in this year, in these months 2/17 was better, then 2/16 was better, then 2/17 was better, and then 2/16 was better, obviously better towards the end of the year, because we obviously haven't got any data beyond October here, but you get the idea. And of course you can flip that as well and say, I really want to look at that year-to-date actuals here, and that would give you the same. So here what we're really saying is the actual current month actually is October, and we're saying really beyond that, obviously, that you're getting what you expect, but you see the flip over point. So ribbons might look confusing, but if you've got 4 or 5 years of data, I can tell you either an in-month or year-to-date at a glance what was your most successful year at any point in time during the calendar. You can see that really easily with this ribbon chart. It's very useful. And of course you can vary the metric here. You could go from looking at sales to gross profit, which I suspect in this demo might be the same, or go to net profit, and it would then obviously flick things around a bit further. Net profit, we were consistently better in 16 than we were in 17, which is about cause for concern. And I could even look at that by variance as well. You know, if I wanted to look at year-to-date variances as we went through, I could also check that out as well. So really handy report, and of course, as with everything, sorry to bore you with it, this of course is available by every company, by every cost center, by every department you can think of. Also, if you have more than one budget, you can actually vary this by multiple budgets as well. Okay, so moving on now, I'm now looking at the in-month trends and year-to-date trends. So I'm looking at in-month and year-to-date on one screen. You look at the previous screen, I could either choose in-month for both charts or year-to-date for both charts. Here I'm picking one of each. And again, I can go down here and pick a particular year if I wish. And I can pick a particular company, and I can pick a particular nominal. So I could actually say I want to look at it for sales for Manchester. Now, the reason why I was thinking, why are we so restricted on choices here? But of course, the reason why we're restricted here is that we've already homed in on the Manchester cost centre. So if I flick that up now, I can now then look at any of these across any of the different cost centres. So again, nice easy way of looking how we're doing for a particular year for a particular nominal. So I might want to look at labour costs, for example, and it will then show me my labour costs going through. Okay, so now we're changing things slightly here, where we can compare a particular, whereas on the last screen we were looking at a particular nominal and look at it in month or year to date. Here we can pick a particular view on the data, so we're looking at the variance. That's probably not the best of things to look at. Let's have a look at year-to-date actuals, for an example. And at the moment, I'm contrasting sales with total overheads. But I can obviously change that. You know, I could look at this and say I really want to do net profit as an income, and I want to contrast that with total trading expenses if I wanted to. So we can compare any income, and you could do control click here if it made sense to group the income items or the cost items together for a meaningful comparison. You would just add those two things together. And again, of course, you can do this again for any variable you wish. You could even say, well, what we were expecting to do when we looked at that from a budget point of view, and that was the budgeted numbers that we had for the two. And now this is the one visual, which is a real shame. I mentioned at the beginning that we have the option to have imported data into Power BI, which is what you're looking at here. Or we have the option to put Power BI live on top of our EiB Financial Analytics Cube for Sage 200. The one visualization, and God, I wish Microsoft would get this sorted out, that doesn't exist on the live connection is this decomposition tree. And this is a phenomenally useful piece of visualization. For those of you who haven't seen it, it might seem a little confusing, but boy, is this powerful. You start from one value of all your nominals and say, well, how do you want to break it down? Now, the obvious thing to break it down is by income and expenditure. So now I can see here's my income, 41 million, my expenditure is 5 million. Well, that's a good start. Now I want to break it down by company. Well, what do I want to break down? Do I go down the expenditure route or the income route? Here I'm going to go down the income route. I click on that and it breaks it down into the companies. Again, with two companies that are identical, not terribly useful. With 30 companies, this might be quite useful. And then I want to actually break it down by summary account. So I'm now looking at the income accounts. Again, it's the Sage demo data, so not terribly complex. In your environment, that could be 5, 6, 10, 20 nominals. Now I want to look at the sales and drill down to the next level. Now I'm looking at UK sales and export sales. But I want to go further. I want to go right the way down now to the nominal account. In here, pretty pathetic one-to-one mapping. Again, in your environment, there could be 20, 30 nominals here. And then I want to break it down by cost center, and I want to pick on a particular cost center and break it down by department. Now, there's no other visualization on the planet that actually allows you to do that. Really, really, really powerful. Brilliant piece of kit here. And I can change this, of course, for any cost center or any company combination. I could do this and click it for company one, and then it would obviously completely refresh the data. Really, really powerful for seeing how things are moving. And you can order these in any order you like. So if, for example, you want to start off on company, or you want to start off on cost center and drill into department, drill in nominal, you can do this in absolutely any order. So it's a piece of artificial intelligence that Microsoft have put into the product, and it's really nice because if you're looking for anomalies and you want to follow this train of thought, this is a brilliant visualization to allow you to do that. And then I've talked about 360 degrees analysis here, where I can pick on certain things. I've got on labor costs here. Let me just deselect everything here. It gets a bit messy when we put everything in here, but then let's have a look at certain things. So what have we got? So we got some sales here. Let's have a look at sales. And what that's doing now is breaking down the sales again by the two companies here, and then breaking it down into cost centers, so I can see who are my best cost or profit centers here. As I move my mouse across, I get the precise values as I go through there. Then I'm breaking it down by department, so I've got company view of the number, cost center view of the number, department view of the number, and then ultimately the actual individual nominal here that actually makes that value up. So really quite cool there, really, in terms of the sort of analysis you can do. And again, you could actually go here and say, well, if I look at bespoke kitchens, how much do they contribute across here? So if I click on bespoke kitchens, it actually shows me that contribution now to these other areas. And this again is really phenomenal. You might have a salesperson that actually exists in a particular department within a cost center within a company, and you might find out from doing this that that salesperson contributes 50% of your overall revenue, for example, and you can see exactly how it affects it. Here, bespoke kitchens is affecting these three different cost centers, this one phenomenally, and that one happens to be our most successful cost center. And overall, that one department here is contributing about 25% of our overall revenue in both companies in this example. So really, again, useful piece of visualization. And then to round things off, we've looked at TB, we've looked at P&L, and now we're actually looking at the balance sheet. So we just have a couple of simple reports at the end where you can drill down and look at your balance sheet items here as well. And again, you can pick the balance sheet items that matter to you, so you can be selective here if you wish, and actually only bring out, again, particularly if you've got a big balance sheet, you might want to do that. And then last but not least, you can then obviously then look at this and start drilling down in a similar way as we looked at before. So again, I'd already homed in on those three, so I'm only really allowed to drill on those, but you can see I can drill down really easy now through my balance sheet. And again, this is getting in my way. Remember the magic button, you press on that, I can now see it very easy. Now, this is a multi-company balance sheet. If you're a single company, then you just get this view that you're looking at here, where you've got the opening balance, movement, closing balance. But you'll see, whilst it's the same data because the companies are identical, you can see that if I have 20 or 30 or even 2 or 3 companies, I can see the balance sheets consolidated alongside on a like-for-like basis as we move through here. Okay, a lot to take in. If you like what you see and think, wouldn't it be great to just plug this into my data, then that is easily possible. So please, if you are interested in doing that, then please make sure that you register on our site. Go to www.excelinbusiness.com. You'll see an option there, book a free demo. It's on every single page, or you can go to the Power BI section and fill in a form there. Either way is absolutely fine. Now, to finish, I mentioned import versus live. What are the differences? Why would you pick one over the other? Well, let's start on import. Import, one good reason to pick it is if you've got quite complex structures and you get a lot of value from the decomposition tree, then that only exists in import. It's not a restriction of us. Unfortunately, it's a restriction of Power BI. It only works on imported data, that visualization. It won't work on live connections to the data. So that's a plus for import. The other plus for import is when you set live up, you need a certain version of SQL Server in your organization for that to work. Now, if you were before SQL Server 2.17, you would need 2014 Business Intelligence or Enterprise editions. If you've got those, great. If you haven't, they're really, really expensive to upgrade from, say, 2014 Standard Edition to Enterprise. You're probably almost cheaper to replace the whole Standard Edition with a newer version of SQL. So you need 2.17 or above to really make this work without any issues or any cost implications. So if you've got that, then that's not an advantage for data import. If you haven't got that, another advantage for data import. And the final advantage is When you're using live connections, there is more security setup. You have to set up a thing called the Power BI Gateway. Good news is that is free, the standard gateway, but it does require a lot more setup. And what does that really mean? It means you will have to get IT involved, which may not be a bad thing. But if there are any delays, or also if there is any policy restrictions that IT won't even allow you to set up the enterprise gateway, then obviously you have no way then of producing your Power BI application on top of your Sage 200 data. So there are certainly less barriers to putting import in than there is perhaps live. But now let's flick it the other way. Now let's just pretend I write live there, because I said functionally things are pretty much the same. There is a number of advantages for using live. The first one is scalability. With imported data, you are restricted to a 1 gigabyte total. Now don't get too frightened, because that's 1 gigabyte compressed, which can roughly mean perhaps 10 gigabytes of real data, which is quite a lot for finance. So that really shouldn't be too much of a problem. But certainly, obviously, in the company that had 30 odd Sage companies, that was a problem. There is no way they could actually use import. We had to push them down the live route. So if you've got a lot of data, and if you need horsepower, then live is a better way to go. Another advantage of live is you get the full data set. You get absolutely everything from the underlying EiB Financial Analytics Cube will appear like for like in your application. In the imported version, we are taking a subset of that data. Probably enough for most people, but it is a subset of the data. So another advantage for live. And the last one, which is quite a big one, is by definition, when we say import, that means we've got to export the information from the cube that we've produced and import it into this model. So it's not a case of if the cube's updated, this is automatically updated. There has to be an import process. Now, of course, that can be automated. And even on the import side, Microsoft have a very lightweight Power BI gateway that can be just connected up to any PC. But that can also be scheduled. So you can automate all this. So it might not be as bad as I'm perhaps making it sound. But the facts are the facts. It's not a case of produce the cube, you've got the app. You produce the cube, you then automate or run manually the import. That import will take X amount of time. That could be up to an hour on larger structures to then refresh the data ready for Power BI. If you've got a live connection, that concept doesn't exist. As soon as the cube is updated, you have all of that cube available to you in your Power BI application. So we recognize out there that you are going to fall into probably one of two camps there, and it's very hard to work out which one in advance will fit which customer. Good news is you don't have to worry about it. However your organization is set up, there is an EiB Power BI solution for you on your Sage 200 data, and it's complete. It's not like some other solutions where there's 1, 2, 3 reports here. This is a full-blown data warehouse on top of your nominal ledger. Thank you.